Hey, I didn't take any notes, and I'm pretty, so it's gonna be very all over the place, and I'm probably going to forget a lot of stuff that I was planning on saying or something, and stuff around that, stuff like that. But this video was probably mostly intended to be like a kind of response to mostly two of Billy's recent videos, as well as some of his community posts and the kind of general topic that was being discussed within these specific posts and community and videos and stuff. So it's mostly going to be about that. Um, but I guess to start out with, I'll look through some of his community posts that are potentially relevant to this specific topic. I was interested. I had something to say about. I guess I'll say that. Let's see. Yeah, the thing with the tsunami is like, yeah, you don't have to feel like bad or anything for you know, looking at that and then trying to contact or warn people that that you care about or have some acquaintance or some acquaintance with or whatever. Um, and just to be cautious or whatever. Um, it was just something that uh, when you said it, that was the only reason I even looked it up or anything. Is when you mentioned it, and then I looked it up myself on like the Weather Channel, and I just thought it was really funny that it said 8.8 on what I was looking at, and Rudy and I had been talking on Discord a lot about various things, but the 88 or whatever was a thing that would always be coming up for him in synchronicities or whatever as one of those numbers. So I brought that up and I just thought it was funny. And then I looked at some of the other stuff involving it and I was just like, wow, this is so like immediately clown show bullshit going on here or whatever. It just like the whole like uh I don't know, like the all parts of it just kind of like fell apart like instantly as soon as you looked up anything about it, like just or if you just thought a little bit about it, it was like, wait a minute, you got 30 centimeter waves that they're talking about here, and supposedly an 8.8 earthquake, like one of the supposedly largest in terms of magnitude, um, that is ever recorded, and it didn't do shit or whatever, basically, like, and they just freaked out about it. So that was just funny. So I wouldn't feel like bad or stupid for whatever you said initially from it, but yeah, it was just something that me and I guess Rudy and other people saw and were just like, wow, this is completely cake in a lake, as Matt would say, or what? Not maybe not. I don't know, like completely contrived. Well, I'll say. Huh. I guess that was well. Besides these two other posts here, I will talk about those later. But in that case, I guess I will mostly look at the topic of your last two videos. This one, a an observation in some behavior dynamics I observe. Um, and yeah, you were pretty much talking about you were pretty much talking about, at least from what you observed from this other YouTuber, I guess, that from what you were observing, your instinct was telling you that just the way that this guy seems to probably have a very idealistic view on his or on how relationships between men and women work, and in that case his relationship with his wife or whatever, and the way that he sort of acts, like you can kind of tell that he's probably more on that sort of potentially like Kevin James sort of like thing. The what do they call that? The beta bucks or whatever, like the safe, um the safe and secure partner or whatever, not the one that the woman optimally would want in terms of attraction, but the one that she would take as the settle with, I guess you could say, the one to settle down with. But you could see with by your instinct, you're feeling like this guy, he's probably going to be, or by the way that some of her ways that she is acting within those videos, I guess you feel like she is probably not very happy being with this guy, just because of these facts. Like, she knows that she is trying to see him as a like a sort of settle down type of person, but she doesn't probably really respect him or desire him. But he's the safe option, so she's probably not very happy deep down being with him. So she's probably, they're eventually probably going to have relationship problems and likely separate at some point, even though it seems like it's all great from what that guy probably sees at the moment or whatever on the outward, um the outward optics or whatever that they're giving.
Um,
I forget what else. That's the main thing that you were kind of talking about of involving them, but I know you mentioned some other
but
stuff.
or reveal from their YouTube presence that are the actual business and the money maker. Sure, they might do some art on the side.
Oh yeah, you were talking about that as well. That it doesn't. What was it like? He gives the not vibe or whatever, but he gives the idea. Um, he gives the idea that he is primarily making his income from his actual like art, I guess. But he acts like the YouTube part is just a a hobby almost, not so much actually like possibly one of the primary reasons he's making money off of doing art. Like, it's not actually the art making the money, it's just the YouTube channel, and the art happens to be the thing that attracts people to his channel, kind of. So it's like, and I don't know the situation, but you're probably correct in that. Um, I think that's the case with a lot of these channels, honestly. Like, you you see some of these channels that do certain things that, like, yeah, they probably make money off of those things, but then you probably also imagine they probably make a lot of money back, if not possibly more money in some cases, from the actual just the YouTube content itself, rather than the whatever company that they are doing and whatever thing that they're doing. Like, I've seen so many of these repair channels that like repair like electronic stuff and say like consoles and shit, and then and at least in some cases actually supposedly sell them back, as like refurbished and stuff and repaired and all that. But then you have to kind of imagine, like, just thinking about all the other costs that are involved there and all the other risks that come with buying broken shit, or like, intentionally buying broken stuff and then repairing it to try and resell it. How many other costs come with that? and how much profit they would actually be making if, say, they didn't have any YouTube presence whatsoever. And the obviously the other benefits of having a YouTube channel is that it's not necessarily free marketing, but it is marketing that doesn't necessarily require any upfront cost to market besides the effort you have to put in to actually make said videos. So that's, there is many benefits to having that kind of social media content creator presence for something when you're trying to also sell a product or make a business from that. And I would almost say in some cases, from what I've heard people say with like YouTube videos, how much they make and stuff. And I wouldn't be surprised in a lot of cases they make more money from their YouTube channel. Like you're kind of saying that this guy is giving that impression. That's the word. Giving the impression that oh yeah, it's just a side thing. When if you actually think about it, it's probably not. Even if the guy is trying to purposely obfuscate that, or if he is actually just ignorant of that fact.
And they may be actually an
That was a completely different topic, but I remember you talked a lot about that in this as
artist
well.
and spend, how to find your how stuff full time. He had a lot of uh, privilege, I would argue. What world are you living in? Anytime a woman ends up settling down for a guy, it's always after, like, if for the most part, most of the time, with the exceptions of some cases, but for most of the time, when a girl is settling down, when a woman is settling down with someone, and you hear her say, and she said it too, that she used to date the wrong guys. We all know what that means.
Yeah, I mean, and you're not even just making an observation with no additional context at all. Like if this woman was actually saying that kind of shit, it's like, yeah, that's a real big red flag indicator that if that guy had any sense at all, he'd be thinking that's not a good thing to hear. Um, that's not a good thing to hear with the wrong guys. Yeah, the wrong guys. Yeah, that is not a good thing to hear if you're the settling the safe option, the settling down option there.
And it's a common pattern, not just common, but overly prevalent, overly, just not just common, but overly, like it's just how it is, right? When you see a woman usually settle after having been through her experiences, right? It's
And I'll probably go over more of this topic if I remember near the end, probably based on another video and another tangentially related topic. But I've thought about this a lot before, and I still think about it often enough. Like, and it's one of those things that constantly just makes me not want to get involved in relationships like whatsoever. It's one of those things that it's like, how can you how can you see relationships currently with that kind of like perception, um and realizing these sort of like seemingly natural, maybe not natural, but like seemingly these facts about how women especially act within this society, and especially act within this modern society with stuff like the internet and stuff, um and as well as the the what's the term, the fuck, what's that term that the looseness, I guess you could say, the looseness that they're encouraged to act, to behave like, um just going around and having fun, having experiences with the wrong guys and stuff, and the wrong guys and shit, going out and having their little fun, fulfilling their little, fucked up fantasies that they've been told that they should experience and shit like that. Um, and these are just the women that are being somewhat honest about it. Maybe they're not even being that honest or like transparent, but the facade flips for some of them, maybe many of them. I don't know. Either they're comfortable talking about this, which is also kind of fucked up when you think about it, because they don't seem to. In that case, they don't see anything necessarily wrong with what they have done previously and stuff. They're how they've acted and what they've done and stuff like that in the past. They don't see anything wrong with that. And obviously, as well, society tells them that there is nothing wrong with that. That it's actually like it's encouraged almost. It's like almost considered like a good thing to do those things. But even though they would probably experience, if they were open, like if they were open about those things with more guys, say if they like, they probably know deep down that most guys probably don't want to hear that. At the end of the day, like most guys would not find that reassuring to hear that from a girl that they were potentially trying to get involved with in some kind of relationship. Um, but at the same time, modern society tells them that this is fine. This is a good thing to do this shit. But so even the ones that are being honest about it, at the same time, you would probably expect that a lot of them would not be honest about it. And then it's like, well, it's not like most people can really necessarily like read people's minds. Like you don't have whatever Wonder Woman's what the hell did she call it, the lasso of truth or whatever the fuck she called it, the whatever she had, where she would make people tell the truth by lassoing them with it or whatever, tying them up with it or some bullshit, or truth serums, whatever. Like you, there is almost nothing that you can 100% know if somebody is telling like the actual truth or not. So you kind of have to go by the assumption that most of these women have had, as you're saying, like these kind of experiences like within their past, potentially still doing that even when they're in relationships, as we'll probably talk about later in some cases. So it's like, I mean, you could say the same thing with dudes, but there is obviously much less of a stigma, even though I think there should be. But as I've kind of talked about this before, I think there should be. Yeah, I did talk about this actually. That I don't think being a player is a good thing either. I think kind of just being a like sort of degenerate hedonistic whore, man or woman, is not, or I guess in that case it wouldn't be a whore, it would be like a slut, fuckboy or a slut, is not really a good thing. Just sleeping around with like dozens or hundreds of different people throughout your life, I don't think that is a healthy behavior to do, not just for the people that they're doing it with, but themselves as well. But generally, it is much more stigmatized for women to be so loose and promiscuous compared to guys. Which, like I said, I don't think either of them. I don't think for either of them it is really necessarily a good thing to do. But I think definitely for women it is much more stigmatized, especially by other men. So, but you just kind of, so you don't know, you can't know if these people are telling the truth or not. Well, I mean, you can get a good idea. There's certain things that you can get a good idea, but in a lot of cases, you can't know for sure if these people are lying or not. So you kind of just have to go by the assumption that probably most of them, if not the majority, are lying. So, say if they say they've had 5 sexual partners in the past, you could probably, if you want to get probably more of a closer number, maybe times that by at least 3, maybe even 5, maybe 10, 10 times what they're actually saying. Um, and then that, like, for some of these guys that are very naive or idealistic, for them it probably wouldn't seem to really matter that much in their mind. Like, that's the thing. Like, I feel like with those people, they probably, even if you asked or told them, like, would you still be all right if you heard that your wife or whatever the person you're in a relationship with had sex with 50 other guys in the past or some shit? And I feel like a lot of them, these Kevin James types, would be like, oh yeah, you know what, I'd still love them and shit like that. They'd have no problem with that. Yeah, I'm mostly just saying in general, like, uh, I don't, I have such a hard time thinking like, oh yeah, I would totally be comfortable getting into a relationship with the very real um likelihood that almost all the women that you almost not maybe not all of them, but most of the women you probably would be interacting with um have probably had multiple partners in the past, or multiple sexual experiences in the past, um and many of them, if they do, would likely be lying to you about that. So, and that's why you kind of have to, I think if anybody wanted to even get past that stage of like that kind of like, oh yeah, I'm still gonna get in a relationship, um they would really just kind of have to reduce their standards by so much to just be like, well, fuck it, they're not gonna, I'm not gonna be able to find any woman that I can guarantee for sure has not had multiple other sexual partners, sexual experiences, shit like that. um But then it's like, man, is it even worth the hassle when you have to think like that? I don't know. That's that's the thing I constantly have trouble thinking about. I'm just like, that, and that's constantly the thing that is like always getting me to say like, I don't think I'd want to deal with that bullshit.
Always some, most of the time. Don't get me wrong, a lot of these dudes are tough also. There's a lot of tough dudes. Like, they're just, they're still poisoned by the whole, uh, that spiritual or even, or not even, let's just not even call it spiritual, let's just call it a psychological framework. It's a bug. It's like a, I kind of call it a mind virus. It's the Kevin James mind
Yeah,
virus.
I
The
can't.
Kevin James Sheldon has had a one night stand. Every girl I've been with has been in an idealistic way, in a non sexual way. And that's, even though they might desire him sexually to some extent as well, because they're emotionally they're attracted to him.
um I think that was the main other thing. Like, I think I kind of rambled on long enough, hopefully, to get my kind of point across uh with that kind of part. But then the other thing that I'm remembering you talked about was uh the fact that there seems to be at least you've heard stories, and I'm sure you've probably experienced it yourself or whatever from other people or observed it from other people, but stuff like, I guess, in your example, the like the woman in a relationship, the wife, whatever, gets pretty sick or some, like very sick. And being in a relationship, the husband feels obligated through his love towards the other person, towards his partner, to take care of them in their state of being ill and state of weakness and stuff, state of vulnerability. They feel obligated to be there to care for them and stuff. And I think for most guys, uh, if they were given that kind of question or given that kind of potentially hypothetical in that situation, if they were with a partner that they've been with long enough in a relationship to consider them like their long-term partner or whatever, they would probably say similar things to like what they would do. They would probably be like, yeah, of course I would take care of my wife or my girlfriend or whatever, my lover, the person that they're in a relationship with. If they would say that, like, of course I would take care of them and stuff. Either until their death or until they get better, hopefully. But then you saying that in many of these cases that you've heard, when and if the wife or whatever the woman recovers, she appears to, after the fact of being in that vulnerable ill state and being taken care of by their husband or their and the person they're in a relationship with, they appear to either lose all interest, lose all respect, lose all desire to be with that person, and they either like leave them or they just start like almost resenting them, resenting being with them, and then they just try all they can to get break up with them or whatever, get away from them, kind of shit. Even though you'd think, well, you think they would respect them more for being there for them in their moment of weakness and of vulnerability and stuff, being with them that whole time. But as is a lot of the case of with things in this realm or whatever, this reality, they do the opposite of what you'd probably expect. They start to disrespect them and shit like that. Uh, and I looked up just for the hell of it. I was like, chat GPT or whatever. Give me, is there a term for when somebody loses respect for another person due to them being too nice to them? This is basically how I tried to get it to answer something like that. Yes, there's a few psychological and social terms, concepts to describe this phenomenon when someone loses respect, blah, 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 perceived as too nice or overly accommodating. Doormat effect. This isn't but it's a common phrase used to describe somebody who's excessively submissive, agreeable, or self-sacrificing. This reminds me of my mom. Actually, when she is involving her people outside of my dad and me and my dad, she seems to love to be a doormat for other people. Um, Essentially letting others walk all over them. People often lose respect for somebody they see as a doormat because they perceive a lack of boundaries or self-respect. True. Nice guy syndrome. This refers to a pattern where somebody believes that being extremely nice, agreeable, or selfless, especially in relationships, are rather than affection or respect. Um, I mean, that is true, but like as I was reading through a lot of this, as I expected, with the AI or whatever, the it is obviously going to go more towards the defend women kind of thing and shit like that. So it's going to see some of these things as like, oh, this is a fault of the person being nice or them trying to be selfish more so than to put blame or responsibility on the other party, that being like the woman in this case, the one doing the disrespecting of the person that took care of them or whatever. Um, this one, reverse dominance hierarchy in evolutionary psychology, which, I mean, there is truth to it, but the whole stupid evolution bullshit and Darwinism bullshit, I think is mostly bullshit, but I think there is some truth to the whole things involving this. Um, there is some truth to it. Some aspects that are true in it. Observations of the behaviors from people and stuff. People often respect individuals who show competence, assertiveness, or leadership traits. True. Someone who is too differential? Differential, that's a weird word to use for that. Too differential or avoids conflict altogether might be seen as lacking power or authority, leading others to instinctively rank them lower in the social hierarchy and give them less respect. Well, pretty similar to the doormat bullshit. But yeah, the whole thing with the nice guys not being respected kind of shit. People view others that treat more people that treat others with like shit. They treat them as if they're, um it's the false animus stuff, the false masculinity stuff, where they see that as like that person has more value on the totem pole uh than others, so they see them as somebody who is more seen as more of authority figure kind of shit, more so than somebody that treats others with more respect or less assertively or whatever you want to say. So they're lower on the social hierarchy. So then, thus, they should be treated more like shit, or they gain less. They garner less respect because of that. Fawning as a trauma is when a person tries to avoid conflict or gain approval by being excessively nice or agreeable, often as at their own expense. This can trigger a loss of respect if others see it as a inauthentic or weak. Definitely the weak part, the inauthentic. Yeah, I guess I could see that, but that's usually not what happens. Once again, this is trying to put more blame on the nice person than the other parties, because it's saying like, oh, see, the person's trying to be manipulative, which is, it sometimes does happen, but I think in most cases that's not the case. Over accommodation in interpersonal dynamics, being overly accommodating can be perceived as manipulative. Yet, once again, seen as manipulative, like trying too hard to please or lacking self worth. Definitely that, the lacking self worth thing, definitely does happen. This often, but people, even if that person isn't necessarily lacking self worth, it often can be perceived as that, even like unconsciously. So like the person would see them, oh, this person is being so, non, um, nice or whatever to them. So then they see that as like, this person must see themselves as less worthy than me or other people. So then they just see that as somebody who is weak. And once, as we said, almost nobody likes weak, pathetic people. Weak, pathetic, desperate people. Uh, I even just ask it like just straight up. Say if a wife becomes very ill and her husband began taking care of her during this time. The wife recovers, but afterwards decides to leave the husband even after being shown all of that care. Is there a term for this behavior? Blah 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 blah. Caregiver resentment or inversion. Sometimes when one partner becomes the caregiver, the balance of the relationship changes. The sick partner might begin to feel loss or of autonomy or equality. Shame, guilt, or indebtedness, like a child rather than. This is where I was reading and I was just like, oh my god, this is fucking the rah rah independent women feminism, girl power kind of fucking bullshit coming out. Role reversal and loss of attraction. In this case, especially when traditional gender roles are deeply ingrained, the caregiver dynamic might shift how one partner is perceived. The caring partner becomes viewed more like a parental figure than a romantic partner. I'm like, Come on, I don't fucking see that. Um, the shift can diminish, and I'm like, what? Diminish sexual or romantic attraction, like because they view them as a parent more than anything? No, I don't think so. I think it's because they view them like they don't respect them anymore because they I think a lot of it, that's how I see it, is that they see that um more on the loss of the whatever the social hierarchy thing, like they are treating them so caringly that they see that as like um they lose their value because in their eyes, because it's like, oh well, uh there is no there's no like chase or whatever you want to say, like it's just a fucked up dynamic, but it's does happen where they see them as being lower on the social scale or hierarchy or whatever because of that. Like if they're not treating them kind of badly, they see that as them being weak. Like if they treat them being weaker and stuff like that, so they lose respect for them from that. And in this case, losing becoming less attracted to them because they're like, well, this person obviously isn't as high status than I thought, or that they view themselves as higher status than that person. So they're like, well, time to go to somebody else, kind of shit. Or they become unhappy because they're like, well, this relationship, I'm higher status than this guy or whatever. I need to find somebody better. Survivals get fucking fuck off. Yeah, right. Cognitive dissonance or displaced emotion. Huh? For the version, what? Once again, fucking stupid bullshit. Trauma linked aversion. Fuck off. Yeah, I was just like, would there be anything the character giver could do to prevent this loss of respect? Uh, Inherently challenging. There are things a caregiver can do to reduce the unintentional creating. Oh, fuck off. Maintain equality. Fuck you. Avoid over identification with caregiver role. God, this is so fuck. I was just reading through some of this shit. I'm just like, fuck off. It's fucking like probably straight from some fucking bullshit feminist like psychology therapist fucking book. Respect boundaries and independence. Keep emotional intimacy alive, and maybe that's true. Maybe that's true, but like, yeah, keep emotional intimacy alive. Wasn't there was some video? Who was saying that you still have to like date date the wife or some shit like that? I forget. I don't think it was. It definitely wasn't Billy. It definitely wasn't Billy. It definitely wasn't Rudy or anything. I don't know who I was watching that said something like that. It was like maybe yesterday or like 2 days ago, some shit like that. You still have to like date the wife, bring them on dates and stuff to keep that emotional, like whatever or some bullshit. Like you have to go on dates with them and shit. Otherwise, the emotional bond stops happening. I don't fucking know. It's fucking, to me. It just sounded fucking stupid, but it's probably not completely untrue either. Once again, one of these stupid things that I'm like, sounds absurd that you have to do that in these relationships to apparently make them work, which you don't, by the way, because if they really are that like into you or whatever you want to say, and once again, this is like only something that a schlubby hubby would have to do. Um, as you know, Billy kind of brings up with the whole the Chad thing. We'll bring that, like, if the woman desires the man enough, she's going to be doing all she can to try and keep that dude, and she's going to be desiring him that whole time pretty much. But if it's this dynamic where it's the uh if it's this dynamic where it's the guy is being the woman is settling for the guy, the beta bucks or whatever, the schlubby hubby, then the schlubby hubby guy is going to have to do this kind of fucking bullshit to keep her in good on good terms with him or whatever. Otherwise, she'll just be like, "Well, I wish I was with somebody else like right now that I'm actually like attracted to and desire," kind of shit. Like, I didn't even think about that until like now, but I was just like, yeah, like you would never have to be doing that stuff. Like, I'm trying to remember where the fuck that I heard that shit with like, oh yeah, you still got to date the woman and stuff. You got to bring her on dates. I'm like, no, you shouldn't have to do that. Like, if she actually desired you, that's the fucking problem. If she actually desired you, you wouldn't have to do that. That's like absurd to even consider. But I guess as the schlubby hubby, then you probably do. Which right away tells you something is wrong in that entire dynamic. Don't expect gratitude as a reward. And even though I do at the same time, you say this, Billy, where if you were in that position, you would likely take care of them until they're either well or whatever. You take care of them the entire time. You love them the entire time, that kind of thing. Even if you knew deep down uh, that they are likely to either lose respect for you or lose all desires for you or want to leave you after the fact, after they got better. Like, that's the thing is, I guess that's the thing that would truly make that relationship for the guy or you or whatever in that case to be truly non-transactional and truly based off of just pure like love in that case. And you're like, yeah, love in that case is that you wouldn't even expect them to give you that something in return for what you did. You wouldn't expect anything from it after the fact. Um, and I guess that is the kind of the entire concept of unconditional love or whatever, like truly unconditional love, is that you'd still do that even knowing damn well that after the fact they probably would lose all respect for you and want to leave you anyway. But you'd still do it. Um, so possibly, that's I guess maybe as the person, you probably just have to view it like that. If you really wanted it to be truly non-transactional in that case and truly non-conditional, then you just kind of have to deal with that fact that they are likely to lose respect for you and lose desire for you and want to leave you after the fact in those instances. But you'd still do it anyway because even with that completely known from the start, you'd still do it anyway. Uh, oh yeah, and then I looked up. I just asked it like, what does monkey branching mean in terms of relationships? So ChatGPT obviously does know some of the red pill stuff. It just doesn't. It just wants to kind of not. It doesn't like talking about it. It doesn't like to talk about it in certain ways. It sees it as more negative stuff. But the idea of monkey branching of what is it? That was actually a good way to describe it. Is like I didn't think about it that as like monkey branching is that I guess when a monkey is swinging, it probably doesn't. When it's swinging, it likely does not lose le- um loosen its grip on one branch before it grabs the other, and then it'll like once it grabs the other, then it'll let go of the previous one, and then continue from there. But monkey branching is in the same way is that someone in a relationship that is monkey branching, almost always a woman, uh, will be looking for other options before they leave their other relationship. So they'll be shopping around and trying to secure somebody, uh, before they actually break it off with the other person. That was a funny red pill term, but definitely something that I'm sure happens. Now Was that the main thing I wanted to talk? That was the main stuff I think I wanted to talk about with that video. Um, and goddamn, it's just incredible that I've already went fucking 45 minutes somehow. God fucking damn it, dude. But anyway, and then Billy, you made another video sort of related to the same topic, but you were talking about seeing in these like shows that you were seeing while you were at your mom's house, and that they that they obviously, like, it's funny with these shows because I probably know the not the exact shows, but I know the kind of shows that my mom watches on her fucking bullshit. These like really like B and C tier like shit fucking like movies that are just straight up like 100% made for like mostly women. The way that they're like written and all that bullshit. And the themes and everything like that, and it's just exactly like the soap operas, the exact same kind of bullshit, but just more vulgarity and more violence, and just the same stupid recycled fucking themes and bullshit and tropes and bad acting and everything, but but you know, I never really watched many of these things. I just kind of like sometimes I'll hear like hints of them and stuff here and there while I'm, say, like walking through the hall or something, going to the bathroom or some shit. Um, but so I almost guarantee I know what kind of things you're talking about. Uh, but yeah, it's and this is done in so many other forms of media as well, where like they'll have this like average looking dude, or like average looking dude that doesn't like have any like particularly um or like somewhat ugly even, but like, you know, just like not that attractive, just very average looking, sort of like schlubby hubby looking dude, like average Joe, like nothing particularly special, nothing particularly probably desirable to a lot of women. Um but they will almost always use that person as the portray them in a way that is like, see, this person is like creepy, or this person is is whatever, to just kind of like be propaganda in that way, to like be like, look, these people are not worth or these people, there is something you should be suspicious about them, there's something that you should have against them, like you should not like these people and stuff. uh and then in other cases, these other characters, like you were saying that the woman was going like having wild experiences with this other dude, um in the particular thing you were watching, you know, fucking going girls gone wild for that guy, some Chad or whatever. But then, you know, the normal guy, he's a fucking creepy dude that's like stalking her and shit, and he's also a psycho and everything. Yeah, like that kind of programming. It's a similar kind of programming that in general that they try to even have, like, just men in general, but probably mostly, you know, what they would consider like creepy men, or ones that they're saying like average dudes and stuff, or like non-attractive, not like average or below average dudes, portraying them as like they're always like PDFs. When I say PDFs, I mean that's hobo code, or at least Matt doesn't use that hobo code, but that is hobo code in other spheres. PDF meaning pedophile or whatever, you know, like kitty diddler kind of shit. So you know, you just have some fucking guy who would say go to like a school or some bullshit, and like people automatically assume that the guy is like a fucking PDF or some shit. Like, really, like you are automatically assumed to be doing something wrong just because it's so fucked up. But that is what society has programmed people to view most men as fucked up as that is. I've talked about this before. I believe. I think mostly with Rudy, but yeah, it's talked about this kind of shit before, and it is so fucking messed up to just imagine that yeah, like most of society has been programmed to think that most men are out there to harm like women and children. It is so fucked up, dude. And that's kind of like as you're seeing in that movie or whatever, like the same kind of fucking programming propaganda bullshit. Um I think that was the main thing I wanted to say from that. Um and you linked this other video that was, or you linked this other video in a community post that I guess this kind of like red pill topic channel sort of thing was talking about the shocking truth about being a Chad. You mentioned I'm over halfway through listening and this points at the truth of my video from last night. I don't like labels and I know certain spaces and I know of certain spaces with labels. Much of the stuff they say is hard truth, uncomfortable hard truth. People have tried to BS me all my life. As a guy who had a little fun myself, I never get, I never got to play, not to player category. But I used to have this problem due to what the church grilled into me. I was always expecting a soulmate to arrive because I lived and served God. When this never occurred, finally I had to question everything. I began to observe, take note, and bring it back to the forefront of my consciousness the things I had always observed all my life. The truth is, you are not getting women. If the truth is, you are not getting women. Uh, you are not getting women chase you if you are not the type women chase. You are not getting women to chase you if you are not the type women chase. If you are the lowest economically, you have to do the approaching, which puts into question. If you're the one who has to approach, is it worth it putting in that work at all, knowing the ones you are approaching are chasing somebody else? That's a very good point. That is not something worth pursuing. Women are not worth pursuing. If one does pursue you and you never had it happen in the past, there is usually a reason. She's looking to settle. And when that happens, you are making a mistake in accepting that role. She's looking for her Kevin James schlubby hubby. And I think, from what you said, it's kind of hard. Like, if you've actually observed these things and these behaviors, it's kind of hard to argue against that. Um, and I've kind of like I won't say that I've observed it like in my personal like physical life, but I've seen it many times like through online things and from other people. Uh so I've seen that kind of shit many times before. Though I haven't ever personally experienced like say that this guy was mentioning in his video a woman like simping for a guy, like simping for Chad. Like I've never, even though I can imagine it, I can 100% imagine it. I have seen some of that from stuff like these like things, these things showing like dating apps, like people making fake catfish accounts on dating apps as Chad, and then seeing the women that will be messaging them and stuff. Uh, so I've seen women simping for men, which is just it's just as if not more pathetic than men that simp for these women and stuff. But I guess with that, yeah, like no, and no, it is not worth pursuing women. I found it is never worth pursuing women because as soon as you are pursuing women, you are automatically considered less like not desirable or whatever to these same women. You just and as Rudy and I have talked about, like you have to. Did we talk about this in our last conversation that was recorded? I forget. We might have, but we definitely talked about this. But like as a guy, you kind of just have to let them come to you. Like you have to let them you have to kind of willing them invite them onto your metaphorical boat Um, yeah, but after you do that, you like, at least if you want to have a happy life or relationship, whatever, you can't let them steer the boat. It's your boat. You're the captain. You can't let them steer it. They're just on the boat, riding with you, by your behest, with your permission. But as soon as they want to steer the boat, then you tell them, hey, you can't be on my boat anymore, or whatever the fuck. And you can't be going on their boat because their boat doesn't fucking exist, or their boat is fucking going off course anyway. Like, men are the ones that have the light, God's light or whatever. Women do not. Women are searching for God's light within men, and men are the ones that should have God's light. But many of them don't seem to be able to, don't realize that, and thus do not emit it properly, or they emit it in the wrong ways or whatever. Which is why you have so many of these fucking pathetic, barely like men biologically, but not men in their behaviors and spiritually and stuff. But yeah, like you really, you can't be the one that is pursuing women. They have to come into your life, and you have to be the one that allows them to come into your life. You can't be the one trying to come into their life and think that is going to end up as a good thing for you or whatever in the end. Because as you're saying, Billy, is that if they're not pursuing you, they're pursuing somebody else. Or if they are pursuing you, well, I guess in your case, you're saying like if you're not really that desirable, you should really be questioning if they're quote unquote pursuing you. There's probably a ulterior reason for that. Say they're not actually desiring you, but they're desiring the security that you provide, the safety and comfort and settling, that kind of thing, the beta bucks that you provide, not so much the that they truly desire you or whatever. And in that case, they're almost definitely pursuing and desiring somebody else besides you, outside of your radar. potentially outside of your radar. So yeah, never pursue women, because it's only going to lead to a bad outcome for you in the end. You're going to be taken advantage of in some way. You're going to be manipulated and lied to in some way. Um, I guess with that, watch a little bit what this guy was talking about. Probably not even gonna watch it necessarily. He's basically just reacting to some other guy that was talking about his younger brother, who is by all definitions, like a Chad or whatever, like a Chad. Like he has women that are simping for him. He has women that will come up to him and be like, "You want to fuck," like that kind of stuff. Um, and he has like a lawyer and shit. But then the guy is basically saying like, being a Chad is not from seeing his brother's experience or whatever. He's trying to say like being Chad isn't as good as people think it is. He's not giving a very good argument. What the hell did he say? He's like, oh, my brother, he's Chad, but he doesn't have any hobbies, and he's depressed, and he's got too much social interaction with other people, and blah blah blah. But then the reason it's kind of a bad argument is because you just kind of say, well, you don't have to spend all of your time fucking other women, or what. You don't have to spend all your time fucking women. You don't have to spend all your time. You have the choice completely within you to decide, okay, I'm going to pursue blank hobbies instead of just fucking women all day and shit like that. So it's not a very good argument. I'm not saying that I have no, like I've said this already with the when I watched that therapist or whatever talking about people that like come from rich backgrounds and rich families and stuff, how they aren't necessarily all like this so happy and stuff. They're not also traumatized just like all of us from like our families and shit. So I'm like, me saying I have sympathy for potentially like almost everybody to an extent. Um and this includes potentially this guy or whatever, this guy, this Chad or whatever. Like, I can see where there would be problems. His brother in this case, and probably the guy himself, would just aren't giving very good reasons. Like aren't giving very good reasons because all of them are completely within their own option. They're completely within their own choice to make more time for hobbies instead of just fucking bitches all day. Uh, so like, yeah, it's not. They give very bad arguments for it. Like, even me not being in them, I could give better arguments. But yeah, I could see that there would be something there. But yeah, but it is true. Like, it is true that it is, and it's completely superficial thing with this Chad and shit. Like the Chad, like the attractiveness. So I mean, it's not complete. It is superficial, but it's not completely all based on physical attributes. Like in that case, all the guys. He's a lawyer. He goes to the gym. He's like Kevin Bateman, the guy from the fucking guy from the fictional character from American Psycho or whatever. Like he does all this shit for his looks and stuff. He goes to the gym and all this fucking bullshit. He's a complete narcissist and shit. Um, but so he does, but he puts all this efforts into that. Uh, so it's mostly superficial that these women see this stuff, but at the same time, like you're in that case, you're mostly going to be attracting women that are superficial. But I guess kind of at the same time, everybody in some way is kind of superficial. Like generally, if somebody sees a hideous person, they are going to think lesser of that person no matter what that person like deep down. But outside of that, the book, of what's the term, don't judge a book by its cover. Like, even they will still judge the book by its cover even with that kind of like thing in mind. um but at the same time, if they see somebody who's like very attractive, like a Chad or whatever, physically attractive and stuff like that, they are going to view them in a better light than somebody who is not that attractive and stuff. Uh, this is generally, I believe, why they often make villains kind of ugly in like cartoons and animations and in even just like live action movies. They will generally try to make the villains and stuff ugly or uglier than the heroes and stuff because they want you to have that immediate response of, this person I like them more, this person I like them less, because one is ugly, the other is handsome, the other is pretty, the other is sexy, whatever. So there's definitely that. Even like, no matter how, I believe, no matter how unsuperficial you are, even as long, I mean, it's more, most important is that you actually realize this. But on the initial reaction, I think most people will still think that way. Like, if they see somebody who is attractive, they will look at that in a better light. They'll treat them better, most likely, compared to somebody who is less attractive or ugly. They will treat them worse. They will have less respect to them. They will be more cautious of them. That kind of shit. Um, so in many ways, being Chad has many more benefits than not being Chad. Uh, but I think there can still be arguments made for, that Chad isn't always the greatest thing in the world. There is disadvantages to being Chad as well. I could see that. This guy and his brother or whatever just made very bad arguments for it. Yeah, that was the primary things I think I was gonna say about that. Um, and there was that I can remember at least that I had open here. Um, this was a video from this guy. Yeah, metaphysical or groundwork for the metaphysics of monkeys, which his old channel was metaphysics for the groundwork for the metaphysics of MGTOW, which I know is MGTOW, which I know is now considered a bad word in YouTube, like straight up like violins kind of word or whatever. Fucking hilariously enough. Um, but this guy Marcus or whatever from this channel, he recently released like two videos. I guess I'll show the other one. Um, the other one was like near an hour. They're both very interesting videos. This one, the next stage of consciousness. Huh.
What Carl Jung would call
Next stage of consciousness. I think it is. I think it is a very interesting listen. Um, Even though Marcus, he always comes off kind of pretentious the way that he speaks and how his stuff is generally pretty scripted and stuff. But I think there is still a lot. It's a very interesting topic in general. But then he made a follow up like a few days after that. He released today the three global political factions of the future or whatever, and I think it is a good follow up to it. Basically, comparing at least in by his definitions or whatever from the other video, um, what the three like main the three main factions or whatever they're going to be um in the modern times, I guess you could say that will be at odds, I guess you could say, at odds philosophically, and in what direction that they're trying to see the future become, I guess you could say. Um, and in his case, it was the traditionalist, the future, yeah, the traditionalist, the transhumanist, and the mystics, basically the mystics. And from his definition, like the mystics were like the most varied group, where they encompass like so many different fucking like groups out there, like people that are like just the biggest varied group of people and stuff, of different groups and everything. Stuff like astrologers and spirit healers, or rock people that are like into rock healing and stone healing, and I don't know. I'm doing a very bad job listing the various groups, but like almost any group, also including people like I would say Rudy and myself and probably Billy, almost definitely Billy and Matt and so many other people within this kind of group that view this place as a simulation of sorts, um, not as a real place, and view it in a much more mystical, magical way than these other groups. And the other groups being stuff like the traditionalist would be people that are trying to go back to the old ways that things were, such as stuff like the new the old gender roles, whatever you want to say, the old gender roles of like the man being the provider and the the provider and the guardian and the head of the, or whatever you want to say, the breadwinner, um, the the one who guards the entire family and stuff is the kind of like that stuff. And then the wife is the one who takes care of the kids, takes care of the other stuff, the whatever, the caretaker, that kind of fucking bullshit. Um, that dynamic, the nuclear family stuff that doesn't really kind of exist anymore, or it's been like pretty much wiped out. Um, but then he also mentions that like the uh, the traditionalist kind of stuff was more of like really more matriarchal, as Rudy has brought up. It's more matriarchal than it is patriarchal. It is more ran by women being the head of the kind of tribes seemingly more than the men, even though that's like they'll say the other way is that it's patriarchy. It's like, no, it's kind of not. But he's saying that, yeah, like the traditionalist, their system already failed and was changed to something else for a reason. So people going back to that kind of traditionalist philosophies is not going to be the solution in the end. It's not going to work out in the end because it failed for a reason, and was replaced for a reason. So those going to the past are going to fail. Are going to fail in their attempt to improve whatever is going on. I guess you could say, like, they're going back to a system that already failed, expecting different results. And then you have the transhumanists, which are the ones, conversely, instead of looking towards the past, they're looking towards the future. And these are the kind of fucked up people that are like, oh yeah, I want to get the brain chip. I want to merge with the digital. I want to be a immortal digital being and stuff. They believe that they believe that with technology, with the material, that they can transcend like what they see as gods and stuff. Like, even ironically, they don't even believe in gods, but what they want to be better than gods, which is funny because at least by our beliefs, we already are gods. We already are gods. We've come from God and stuff. But these transhumanists, they don't really even have gods, but they're trying to become gods. Which, if they kind of look within, at least maybe if they are real, if they're not just NPCs, then they should also they already are there in a way. But yeah, it's mostly a fucked up concept, philosophy. Honestly, like they're they see the solution being more materialism or more technology or whatever, uh more of this physical kind of aspects, not any of the other aspects. Um and with that, it's kind of funny actually. That was kind of what I was going to say is, well, actually maybe I'll get to that. But then, at least what he is obviously looking more favorably towards in this case is the other route, in from what he's presenting, the mystics route, the ones that are seeing this realm as more like a magical thing, and seeing the ways that it works in a much more esoteric, less material way or whatever, like seeing stuff from symbols in energies, in vibrations, in more esoteric and magical, mystical ways, or whatever you want to say, like that we are gods, that this place is a simulation, that we've come from God. We have the powers of God. Things are influenced by us through thoughts, by consciousness itself, kind of shit. Just all that like all those concepts, basically. That's what he's kind of saying. And in that case, he's saying like those mystics, they want the solution or whatever, they are living in the present rather than the traditionalists living in the past and the futurists living in the future. But the mystics living in the current time, in the present moment, in living in the moment. And I think in just general that is an interesting topic. But I did want to bring this up just because I was thinking about it, and I was just like, in terms of stuff like uh stuff like relationships between men and women, like just the actual like reproduction and stuff, like men getting with women and then having children and stuff, like having families through that and stuff, and reproduction through that way. Um, the traditionalists obviously have that where it's like the nuclear families where they have a potentially monogamous relationship, a man and a woman, and then they have kids. They reproduce that way, and that's how there's propagation. But then I thought about it, and I was like, well, what about the transhumanists? And the transhumanists, they also have that, but it's in a, it's in a fucked up sense where if you asked many of them, they would be looking towards stuff like, oh yeah, artificial wombs, um, so artificial impregnation, like test tube babies, basically, kind of like artificial wombs, um, robot wives, AI wives, or whatever you want to say. Basically, taking real women out of the equation completely and replacing them with technology, digitally, or just straight up the even more retarded thing of just, oh yeah, we're all just gonna become digital fucking ones and zeros, like upload ourselves to the fucking internet and stuff, consciousness to the internet and all that bullshit, fucking lawnmower man shit. So that's what they would be thinking, stuff like potentially if outside of that ridiculous, like, oh yeah, upload yourself to the internet, they'd be looking at stuff like robot wives, or sex robots, whatever, that kind of shit, artificial wombs. That would be like their solution to stuff like reproduction and stuff. But then it just made me think, like, well, in that sense, you have the traditionalists. They have that kind of way, which has shown that it functions. But then you have the futurists in their way, which, even though it in theory could probably maybe function, it probably won't, because they probably won't even get to that point. But stuff like, they do technically have solutions to stuff like reproduction. But it's like, well, what about the mystics? On the mystic route, I mean, there's so many different, like, paths for the mystic route and stuff, obviously. What's their solution for stuff like reproduction? Like, if there is no nuclear family, if there is no artificial wombs and stuff like that or whatever, where does the reproduction come from? But then I guess you have so many other forms of mysticism and shit that it's like, it doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have to have also families, obviously. But what is it? And as Rudy and I mentioned as we were talking, he's saying like mysticism. That's kind of like the point, is that mysticism doesn't see stuff in the practical sense, but we see that the reality just kind of like everything kind of just works out in the end without some kind of like necessarily practical solution. It just kind of happens, and that's true. Like, the way that I see how this place works, and the way that I see so many things, like how just anything works, like all of this stuff around us in society, I'm like, these things are like reality breakdowns, or like impossible and stuff, like how the supply chains of shit work, how certain things like function supposedly, but like really shouldn't when you actually kind of think about them a little bit more. The impossibility of all that stuff is magical, is mystical that it does, even with that fact. The same thing with like how stuff like um what's the cathedral that Stallone? Is it Stallone or whatever that cathedral is that Matt always brings up, where it's this fucking massive, gigantic structure that is like completely impossible that people built that, especially supposedly built it like thousands of years ago or whatever fucking bullshit. Um, or even just stuff like the pyramids is probably like one of the better examples that people bring up. Stuff like the pyramids, like there's no way that humans built that or whatever at some point. It's just something that fucking materialized from the ether. Like it was something that was plopped here like a fucking when you're playing like Sim City or something, you just kind of like just ching plopped it there with fucking you plopped it there out of nowhere, and it exists. Same thing with like everything else, basically. Like how does the quote unquote population problems get solved. Like, well, it doesn't, because there is no population problems. There will always be population existing, kind of, or whatever. There'll always be more people, um, even if practically there shouldn't be. It's just kind of like the mystical nature of this place. Just kind of everything works out because that's how it's supposed to. That's how it works, I guess. That's like the best way I could kind of put it at this moment. But that's kind of like the mystical thing, is that there isn't a practical solution. It's just kind of how this place works. Everything just kind of functions, or everything kind of works out the way it should in the end, because of the that's how it is. Like that, there is no physical, material, practical reason for it doing that. It just does. Um, which is very hard to obviously describe or explain or whatever, but it does, it is making obviously more sense to me. And I've mentioned this many times. It's just I hadn't really thought about it in that kind of way, like of a kind of a way of looking at it or whatever, almost like a, as if we are mystics or whatever. Like that's our quote unquote belief, is mysticism and shit like that. But you know, that the magical, mystical nature of this place and shit. All right, I think that's the main things I wanted to talk about. It's gone on almost an hour and a half, so I'm just gonna stop rambling here and say thanks for watching, and hope you enjoyed, and take care.